human is tricky and not always pleasant. On the other hand, being happy is a gift that we give ourselves. So why does it seem so difficult to be happy? And have you thought about what being happy really means? Happiness isn't actually our natural state. We have to experience all of the emotions. But wouldn't it be awesome if we could move the needle toward being more happy day to day? In this series, we're going to explore what it means to understand happiness as it applies to our experiences, our choices, our responses, and our habits. We're going to learn some new habits and develop a practice around them. You'll also be reminded of some things that you might already know but had just forgotten about. We all need a little of that from time to time, right? So why me? Why am I here? Well, although I'm not a licensed psychotherapist or a specialist healthcare professional, I have been an educator in Canada's public school system for 30 years. I have always had a keen interest in human behavior, and for the last 10 years, I have been hyper-focused on the science of well-being and positive psychology. I have done years of research in this area, and I have completed 2 certificates in this field with reputable institutions. So technically, I'm a happiness coach, but I actually prefer the term happiness educator. You might say that I have done all the research for you and have packaged it up with a presentational bow to save you the trouble. Because happiness is not one size fits all, no one can say for sure what will actually speak to and work for you personally. But what I'm going to share with you has helped me to grow positively through applying what I've learned. And I'm sure there will be some things that work for you. So let's get started. I have developed my own ideology around happiness in that I believe it to be built into our choices, our responses, our perspective, and our accountability. I also believe it can be measurably shifted through gratitude, kindness, forgiveness, empathy, mindfulness, exercise, and nature. I titled the first episode in this series, The Science of Happiness, because there has been significant focus and research done in this area, and not only are scientists working diligently to determine what creates happiness, but they're really starting to pay attention to the correlation between our emotional well-being and our health. There are all kinds of books, podcasts, TED Talks, and other such platforms that are dedicated to the science of happiness because it's that important. I will cite many experts in later episodes, but just know that they are out there and accessible to you should you wish to create your own library of knowledge in this area. We're going to work on consciously choosing attitudes and behaviors that point us toward happiness instead of unhappiness, or flourishing over languishing. Languishing means to remain and suffer in an unpleasant situation as it applies to our emotions. People often describe languishing as a feeling of disengagement, stagnation, emptiness, blah, or meh. Most of us can identify with these feelings as we all had to manage the fear and isolation that accompanied the pandemic. Languishing, however, is not to be mistaken for a mental illness. That is a much more serious situation that needs to be addressed by licensed therapists, of which I am not. Flourishing is quite the opposite in that it means to experience positive emotions, positive psychological functioning, and positive social functioning most of the time. I will use these terms often as they most appropriately describe what we are dealing with in our journey here. Okay, so I know you are patiently waiting for that magic moment that I hand you the exact tool to fix you and make you instantly happier. And I really wish it were that easy, but unfortunately it's not. Changes in habit, mindset, and response take some practice, and it's only through repetition, analysis, and revision that we get any better at anything. Have you ever tried to meditate, learn to dance, do yoga, take up a new musical instrument, work out at the gym, hoping to build that new bod? It all takes time and effort. There is no instant gratification in long-term happiness, I'm afraid. But the good news is it's not so much that you need to include a lot of extra things in your day. It might just be about using your time differently and changing some habits and perspectives. We're going to keep this simple by starting with two really easy tasks that you can apply to your day. The first is to observe. The idea is to stop sleepwalking through your day and pay attention to all the little components that create it. You must try your best to be objective and see everything through fresh eyes, like someone else is doing the observing. Now, did I hear someone just say mindfulness? Yeah, well, it's sort of like that. Here are the kinds of things that you might pay attention to. Your journey to work, if you have a job. Interactions with others, like social connections and responses. Sleep habits, struggles and successes, as well as habits leading up to sleep. What and how you are eating. How much? Movement and exercise, or the lack of it. Family dynamics and gaming and device use, including television, social media, and streaming platforms. These are just a few important areas. You might find some others. Some of you will just make mental notes, and some will write everything down with graphs, lists, and other data tools. That's what I love most about human nature. Everyone is different. The most important thing is to make yourself aware of who you are and how you operate. If you are ecstatic about everything that you have learned about yourself, then we're done here. You may go on your way, and I wish you well. But I suspect you may find some interesting insights in those observations, and that is where growth begins. Now, the second thing I want you to do is to take all of those observations and analyze or think about them without judgment. This might be the first time you've really had a detailed look at your routine, habits, and responses, and it's important that you not beat yourself up over it. Try to look upon it with curiosity and wonder, like, I wonder why I do that. Now, here's the important part. While you're thinking about these things, how does your body respond? And how do you react emotionally? Really pay attention to the subtle changes that take place in mind and body, and you'll start to get a sense of what makes you happy, what brings you joy, and what brings you satisfaction and purpose. After all, isn't that why we're all here? Now, recognize that this process might be a little uncomfortable at first, as you might not like what you uncover. But know that this is the first step in a happier you. You can make this process as long as you like, a day, a week, a month, and I'd love for you to share whatever you're comfortable with in the comments. I'll be waiting for you there with a high five and perhaps a little feedback or encouragement. One of the most important and effective tools in our happiness kit is choice. The ability and willingness to choose. This is a concept that I refer to often, as we tend to underutilize it and fail to recognize how valuable it is. Oh, I get it. Making choices can be scary, and it often seems easier to let the universe dictate our fate. But let's face it, this opens the door for a lot of blaming and painting ourselves as victims, no accountability, and no control. It's time to take back some of that control. In his book, The Happiness Trap, Russ Harris explains a concept called the choice point. And this is the idea that with every behavior we exhibit or choice that we make, we are presented with a choice point, or an opportunity that either moves us away from the life we want to build or toward it. This really aligns with the idea that our life is a product of our choices. I think that I've always believed this, and I love that scientists and health professionals are now giving it some teeth. We will certainly look at this more in a future episode, as there's a lot to unpack here. Okay, so what is our takeaway for this episode? First off, happiness takes some effort, and we may have to learn some new skills and habits to become happier. Secondly, no one is happy all the time. It's not our natural state, and this should not be the expectation. Instead, aim for falling somewhere on the happiness spectrum and working at moving the needle toward flourishing and away from languishing. Thirdly, scientists now believe that happiness can be measured and quantified, sort of. and are really trying to come up with a formula that can be used to become happier and healthier day to day. We need to keep cheering them on. Finally, I talked about choice as a powerful ally in the design of a happier life. These are all really just the tip of the iceberg, as there is certainly so much more to examine in the future episodes of this series. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, whoa, wait, is that copyright? Anyway, should you choose to give it a go, is to examine your day-to-day in as much detail as possible for the purpose of finding out what brings you joy and happiness, and what still may need some tweaking in terms of habits and responses. You might even try compiling a few lists. I love lists. That might give you some further insight into what makes you content and happy. For example, you might make a list of all the things you feel passionate about, or the happiest people you know, and why. Maybe list the things that you are really good at, or the best compliments you've ever gotten. The list is endless. See what I did there? The most important part of this process is to acknowledge how this information makes you feel with regards to emotions, thoughts, and body chemistry. Does any of it trigger a response, even a subtle one? Your mind and body will try to tell you stuff, and you need to start paying attention. As we end this episode, I urge you to consider coming back to explore more. Maybe even tell us how things are going. By all means, share this series with others, and please invite them to stop by as well. Like and subscribe, because that's important. And if you'd like to know exactly when these drop, simply adjust your notifications accordingly. I thank you for taking an interest in this subject matter and your own positive well-being, and I hope to see you in the next episode.